In the heart of a bustling city, where the skyscrapers loomed like giants against the twilight sky, a sense of urgency filled the air. The streets, usually vibrant with the laughter and chatter of the people, felt heavy with an unspoken tension. For Amara, a hard-working 28-year-old woman, this day would mark the beginning of a new chapter, one that she never expected or desired. Amara had always prided herself on her independence. She had spent years building a life for herself, juggling multiple jobs to keep her head above water. By day, she worked at a local bookstore, surrounded by stories that offered an escape from her reality. The scent of old paper and ink provided a comforting backdrop to her days, where she could forget, if only for a moment, the burdens that weighed heavily on her shoulders. But as the sun set, she transformed into a waitress at a nearby upscale restaurant, where the clinking of glasses and the hum of conversations filled the air. It was a world of wealth and privilege, so distant from her own struggles. Yet, despite her efforts, Amara's reality was about to shatter. Her father, once a man of strength and dignity, had succumbed to gambling debts that spiraled out of control. The news hit her like a thunderbolt, leaving her reeling in disbelief. She had always seen her father as her protector, a steadfast presence in her life. But the truth was far more complicated. He had made reckless choices that put their entire future at risk. Before you skip, just remember, channels like this only survive if you hit subscribe. Otherwise, stories like this one just disappear. As she stood in her small apartment, the weight of her father's decisions pressed down on her like a lead blanket. The walls, adorned with her aspirations and dreams, felt suffocating. She could hear her father's voice echoing in her mind, telling her to be strong, to fight through adversity. But how could she fight against a world that sought to consume her whole? Later that evening, after a grueling shift at the restaurant, Amara sat at her kitchen table, surrounded by bills and notices that screamed for payment. Her heart raced as she flipped through the papers, each one a reminder of the impending doom that loomed over her family. She knew that her father's debts were more than just numbers. They were chains binding her to a fate she never wanted. Just as she was about to lose hope, her phone buzzed with a message that would alter the course of her life forever. "Meet me at the docks. We need to talk." The sender was a name she had dreaded for weeks, Kaito Tanaka, a figure cloaked in shadows and rumors. He was a Yakuza boss, known for his ruthlessness and power. The stories whispered about him were enough to send chills down her spine. Yet, there she was, staring at her phone, her heart pounding in her chest. She had heard the tales of how the Yakuza operated, of the lives they disrupted and the deals they brokered. They were not just criminals, they were a force of nature, operating in the shadows of society. The thought of being entangled with them sent a shiver down her spine, but she had no choice. As much as she wanted to tell herself she could find another way, the truth was that her father's debts had forged a path for her, one she could not escape. With trepidation, she slipped on her jacket and stepped out into the cool night. The city was alive, but she felt like a ghost wandering through it. The docks were a world of their own, where the salty air mingled with the scent of danger. As she approached the meeting point, her heart raced with every step. She couldn't shake the feeling that she was walking into the lion's den. Kaito awaited her, a tall figure draped in a tailored suit that spoke of wealth and authority. His presence was magnetic, yet intimidating. He stood with an air of confidence, the kind that made it clear he was not someone to be trifled with. As their eyes met, Amara felt a mixture of fear and curiosity. There was a darkness in his gaze, but also something that intrigued her, a flicker of vulnerability that she couldn't quite place. "Amara," he greeted her, his voice smooth and deep, sending shivers down her spine. "I appreciate you coming." She swallowed hard, her voice barely a whisper. "What do you want from me?" Kaito studied her, his expression inscrutable. Your father owes a significant amount of money. It's time to settle the debt." Her heart sank as the weight of his words hit her. "What do you mean by settle? I can't pay this. He cut her off, a glimmer of impatience flashing across his face. "I'm not asking for money. I'm offering a solution. You will work for me until the debt is cleared." The words hung in the air, heavy with implications. Work for him? The idea made her stomach churn. What kind of work? "Nothing illegal, but I need someone I can trust to handle certain tasks. You'll be safe, I assure you, but your life will change." She felt the ground beneath her shift. What choice did she have? Her father's mistakes had led her to this moment, and she could either fight against it or surrender to her new reality. "Are you saying I'm to be your employee?" she asked, trying to mask the tremor in her voice. "Yes," Kaito replied, his eyes piercing into hers. "But more than that, you'll be my eyes and ears in the city. You have a resilience that I respect, and I believe you can handle this." Amara's heart raced as she processed his words. She could feel the weight of his gaze, the intensity of his presence drawing her in against her will. "And if I refuse?" His expression hardened, shadows flickering across his face. "Then your father's debts will come to collect. You know what that means." Fear coiled in her stomach, but she also felt a spark of defiance. "You think I'm just going to roll over and accept this?" Kaito stepped closer, the tension between them palpable. "It's not about rolling over, Amara. It's about survival. I can offer you a way out, but it requires a leap of faith." She searched his eyes, trying to discern his intentions. There was something about him, a complexity that made her heart race. He was a man shrouded in danger, yet there was an undeniable magnetism that pulled her closer. "What do you want from me?" Amara asked, her voice firmer now. "Just your trust. For now," Kaito replied, his tone softening slightly. "The world I inhabit is not one you can navigate alone. I can protect you, but you must be willing to step into my world." The thought was terrifying, yet a part of her felt drawn to the danger it promised. Was it foolish to consider this? She had always fought for her own independence, but now she found herself at a crossroads, teetering on the edge of a choice that could change everything. "I'll think about it," she said finally, her voice steady despite the turmoil inside her. Kaito's lips curled into a slight smile, a flicker of approval in his eyes. "That's all I ask. But remember, time is not on your side." As she walked away from the docks, Amara's mind raced with possibilities. The weight of her father's debt pressed down on her, each step echoing the gravity of her situation. What lay ahead was uncertain, but one truth remained. She was now entangled in a world where danger and allure danced a delicate tango. The very next day, Amara returned to her routine, but everything felt different. Her encounters at the bookstore and the restaurant were tinged with an undercurrent of anxiety. The thought of Kaito lingered in her mind, a ghost whispering promises of power and protection. As she served customers, she couldn't shake the feeling that her life had taken a turn she couldn't control. That evening, as she prepared to close the bookstore, a familiar figure entered. It was Kaito, his presence commanding the room. The moment their eyes met, an electric charge surged between them, igniting a tension that was impossible to ignore. "Have you made a decision?" he asked, his voice low and smooth. Amara hesitated, the weight of her choice pressing down on her. Before she could finish, the door swung open and a group of men entered, their demeanor signaling trouble. The atmosphere shifted instantly, and Amara felt her heart race as Kaito stepped between her and the intruders, his protective instincts kicking in. "Leave," he commanded, his voice cold and unwavering. The men exchanged glances, sizing up the situation. Amara could feel the danger in the air, and her instincts screamed at her to flee. But instead, she found herself drawn to Kaito, the way he stood tall and unyielding, ready to defend her. "Who do you think you are?" one of the men sneered, stepping closer. Kaito's expression remained stoic, but the tension was palpable. "You're in the wrong place. Leave now, and I won't make this a problem." Amara felt a rush of adrenaline as she watched the standoff unfold. Kaito's confidence was intoxicating, yet terrifying. This was the world he inhabited, and it was a world filled with danger. "Or what?" the man mocked, taking another step forward. In an instant, Kaito moved, his speed and precision leaving Amara breathless. He was a force to be reckoned with, and she felt a mix of awe and fear as she witnessed his power. The situation escalated, but before it could spiral out of control, the intruders turned and fled, leaving Amara and Kaito alone in the bookstore once more. "What just happened?" she gasped, her heart racing. Kaito turned to her, his gaze intense. "This is what I meant, Amara. You're not safe. Not while your father's debts linger. You need to decide if you're going to stand beside me or be swept away by the chaos." The gravity of his words settled over her, heavy and undeniable. In that moment, Amara realized that she was standing at the precipice of a choice that would define her future. The world was changing around her, and she could no longer ignore the pull of the unknown. "Okay," she whispered, her voice barely above a breath. "I'll do it. I'll work for you." Kaito's expression softened, a flicker of something unguarded flashing in his eyes. "You won't regret this, Amara." But as she looked into his gaze, she couldn't shake the feeling that her life was about to spiral into a chaos she had never anticipated. The Yakuza world was calling her name, and she was drawn to it like a moth to flame. In the days that followed, Amara found herself navigating the intricacies of Kaito's world. Each task brought her deeper into the heart of the Yakuza, where danger and allure intertwined in a delicate dance. As she adapted to her new reality, her feelings for Kaito grew, tangled in a web of attraction and fear. With every moment shared, she was confronted with his complexity, a man who was both powerful and vulnerable, a protector and a danger. The tension between them simmered just beneath the surface, threatening to ignite with each passing day. Amara's life had irrevocably changed, and as she embraced her new role, she couldn't help but wonder what fate awaited her. The shadows of the past loomed large, but she was determined to carve out her own destiny, even if it meant stepping into the world of the Yakuza. What lay ahead was uncertain, but one thing was clear: her life was no longer hers alone. Amara stood in the lavish, dimly lit office of Kaito Takeda, the Yakuza boss whose presence commanded the space. The room was a stark contrast to the chaos that had enveloped her life just weeks prior. The walls were adorned with exquisite art, and the rich scent of aged whiskey lingered in the air, mingling with the subtle hint of sandalwood. It was an atmosphere of power, and yet Amara felt anything but powerful. She was caught in a whirlwind, and Kaito was the eye of that storm. As she faced him, her heart raced, a mixture of fear and an inexplicable pull towards him. Kaito sat behind his imposing desk, his dark eyes piercing through the haze of her thoughts. There was a coldness to him that both frightened and intrigued her. She had seen him in the shadows, the way he commanded respect with just a glance. But now, facing him directly, she felt the weight of his gaze. "Why did you bring me here?" she asked, her voice steadier than she felt. The tension was thick, and every word hung in the air like a promise or a threat. Kaito leaned back in his chair, his expression inscrutable. "You're here because you have something I need." His tone was smooth, yet there was an edge to it that suggested he was not one to be trifled with. Your father's debts have placed you in a precarious position, and I offer you a way out." "A way out?" Amara echoed, frustration bubbling beneath her resolve. "You mean to say I'm just a pawn in your game? You think I'd just accept this without question?" Before he could respond, she turned away, pacing the plush carpet beneath her feet. The weight of her father's actions settled heavily on her shoulders, a burden she had carried for far too long. She had spent countless nights worrying about how to pay off his debts, about how to keep their home from slipping through her fingers. But this was beyond anything she had imagined. Before you skip, just remember, channels like this only survive if you hit subscribe. Otherwise, stories like this one just disappear. Kaito watched her with an intensity that made her skin prickle. He was assessing her, weighing her defiance against her vulnerability. "You may not understand now, but I'm offering you protection, a chance to live without fear of your father's mistakes. I can shield you from those who wish to collect on his debts." "Protection?" Amara turned back to face him, incredulous. "You think I would trust you? You're part of the very world that put me in this position." His expression darkened for a moment, the flicker of anger barely contained. "You don't have to trust me, Amara. You just need to understand the consequences of refusing my offer. The people who come for you are not kind. They don't care about your moral high ground. They care about what they're owed." Her heart raced as his words sank in. She had seen the shadows lurking in the corners of her life, the men who whispered her father's name with venom. She had known, deep down, that there was no escaping the reality of her situation. But aligning herself with a Yakuza boss, it felt like stepping into a trap, one that was beautifully wrapped and deadly inside. "What about you?" she challenged, crossing her arms defiantly. "What do you get out of this? Why would you want me around? I'm just a burden." A slight smirk played on his lips, a reaction that both intrigued and annoyed her. "You underestimate yourself. You're not just a burden. You're a chance for me to prove I can do more than just lead with fear." "You have strength, Amara. I can see it. You might even surprise yourself." The room fell silent, and she found herself caught in the web of his words. There was something about him that drew her in, a magnetism that was hard to shake off. But she quickly reminded herself of the danger that lay in the allure. The man before her was a powerful figure in a world that thrived on chaos, and yet he seemed to see something in her that even she struggled to recognize. "Why should I believe you?" she pressed, her voice softer now, as if the challenge had shifted to something deeper. "Why should I trust a man like you, Kaito?" His gaze intensified, and she felt the air around them shift. "Because I'm not like the others, Amara. I don't want to see you suffer. In this world, trust is a currency, and I'm willing to invest in you." His words hung in the air, heavy with implication. As she contemplated his offer, Amara's thoughts raced. Could she really trust him? Was it worth the risk to step into the unknown? She had always prided herself on her independence, on her ability to navigate life's challenges without relying on anyone else. But this was different. This was a life or death situation, and she needed to think strategically. The door to Kaito's office creaked open suddenly, interrupting her thoughts. A tall man in a tailored suit stepped inside, his presence imposing. He nodded at Kaito, a silent acknowledgement that sent a shiver down Amara's spine. She had heard the whispers about Kaito's inner circle, men who were as ruthless as they were loyal. "Boss," the man said, his voice low and gravelly, "we need to discuss the situation with the Chen family. They're getting restless." Kaito's expression hardened, and he gestured for the man to continue. Amara watched the exchange, realizing that she was witnessing a world that was both foreign and terrifying. The Yakuza was not just a criminal organization, it was a living, breathing entity that thrived on power and fear. As Kaito listened to the man, she felt a pang of uncertainty. She was caught in the crossfire of a conflict she didn't fully understand. What if she became a pawn in a game far larger than herself? Would she be able to navigate the dangers that lay ahead? She took a step back, feeling the weight of the decision before her. "I need time to think," she said, her voice firm despite the tremor of doubt that ran through her. "I can't just agree to something without understanding what it means for me." Kaito's gaze softened slightly, and for a moment, the coldness slipped away. "Take your time, Amara. But remember, every moment you hesitate is a moment someone else can take advantage of. The choice is yours, but the clock is ticking." With that, he signaled for the man to leave, and Amara was left alone with her tumultuous thoughts. She knew she had to make a decision, but what lay ahead filled her with dread. The allure of Kaito was undeniable, yet the danger that surrounded him was equally potent. As she walked through the opulent office, her mind raced with possibilities. She had always been independent, resilient in the face of adversity, but this was different. This was a world where every choice could have dire consequences. Amara stepped out into the bustling streets, the neon lights of the city flickering above her. The chaos of the outside world felt oddly comforting compared to the turmoil within her. She needed clarity, a moment to breathe away from the suffocating tension of Kaito's office. As she wandered through the crowded streets, she felt the weight of her father's debts pressing down on her like a heavy cloak. The faces of those who were owed money flashed through her mind, their expressions a mix of anger and desperation. She had spent too long running from the realities of her situation, and now, standing at the crossroads of her life, she felt the urgency to act. "Maybe Kaito is right," she murmured to herself, feeling the bitterness of resignation creep in. "Maybe aligning with him is my only way out." But as she navigated the streets, her thoughts drifted back to Kaito, the way he had looked at her, the hidden depths within him that she had yet to uncover. He was a man burdened by his own shadows, a protector who had faced countless battles. She felt an inexplicable connection to him, a bond that transcended the danger surrounding them. "Could I really do this?" she asked herself, her heart racing at the thought of stepping into the unknown. Could I trust him? As night fell, Amara returned to her apartment, the familiar surroundings providing little comfort. She sat on her small balcony, gazing out at the cityscape that felt both beautiful and menacing. The lights twinkled like stars, but below, the streets were teeming with life, a life she had fought hard to maintain, but one that now seemed precarious. In that moment, she realized that her choices would define her future. She could either continue to let her father's debts dictate her life, or take control and face the danger head-on. Kaito had offered her a way out, a chance to reclaim her independence, but it came with strings attached. As she closed her eyes, she felt the cool night breeze against her skin, a reminder that she was still alive, still fighting. She would not let fear dictate her life any longer. She would confront the shadows of her past, and perhaps, in doing so, she would find a way to forge a new path. The decision loomed over her like a dark cloud, but deep down, she knew she was ready to step into the world of the Yakuza. She would face the challenges ahead, and if that meant aligning herself with Kaito, so be it. Tomorrow, she would return to him, ready to embrace the chaos and danger that lay ahead. The world of the Yakuza was waiting, and she was determined to make her mark, no matter the cost. The morning sun filtered through the sheer curtains of her small apartment, casting a warm glow on the walls. Despite the light, a sense of dread hung in the air. Today, she was returning to Kaito, the enigmatic Yakuza boss who had offered her a lifeline, albeit one entangled with danger. Just the thought sent her heart racing. Part of her felt exhilarated at the prospect of stepping into a new world, yet another part was overwhelmed by the fear of what lay ahead. As she prepared herself, she couldn't shake the memories of their last encounter. Kaito's piercing gaze had held a magnetism she found hard to resist, even as she grappled with her circumstances. He was more than just a powerful man. He was a puzzle she yearned to solve, a dangerous allure that called to her. But the shadows of his world loomed large, whispering warnings she was desperate to ignore. Before you skip, just remember, channels like this only survive if you hit subscribe. Otherwise, stories like this one just disappear. As she dressed, her fingers brushed against the necklace her father had given her, a simple silver chain that felt like a link to her past. It was a reminder of her roots, her struggles, and the man whose debts had plunged her into this chaotic life. With a deep breath, she tucked it beneath her shirt, a small comfort amidst the uncertainty. Arriving at Kaito's lavish office, she was struck by the stark contrast between her modest life and the opulence that surrounded her. The polished wooden desk, the sleek leather chairs, the floor-to-ceiling windows that offered a breathtaking view of the city, everything screamed power and wealth. Kaito stood by the window, his silhouette framed against the skyline, looking every bit the formidable figure she had first encountered. You made it," he said without turning, his voice a low rumble that sent shivers down her spine. She hesitated, taking in his presence, how he seemed to command the room even without facing her. "I came as promised," she replied, trying to keep her voice steady. Her heart raced, and she could feel the tension crackling between them. Kaito finally turned, and for a moment, time seemed to stand still as their eyes locked. His expression was inscrutable, but she sensed a flicker of something deeper, a vulnerability hidden beneath layers of strength. "Good," he said, stepping away from the window. "We need to talk about your role in this." Her breath hitched at the weight of his words. Role? Did that mean she was truly part of this world now? The thought both thrilled and terrified her. "What do you mean?" Kaito moved closer, his presence overwhelming. "You'll be my liaison. I need someone I can trust to navigate the streets and gather information. You have a unique perspective, and I believe you can be an asset." She felt a rush of emotions, pride at being seen as valuable, confusion at the implications of such a position, and a gnawing fear of the dangers it would entail. "But I'm just an ordinary woman. How can I possibly—" "Ordinary women don't survive in this world," he interrupted, his tone firm yet laced with an unsettling softness. "You've already proven your strength by facing your father's debts. You have more courage than you realize." His words stirred something within her. She had fought against the tide for so long, and now, perhaps, she had an opportunity to reclaim her life. But the stakes were high. "What happens if I fail?" Kaito stepped closer, the air between them thick with tension. "Failure isn't an option. But I'll protect you. I won't let anything happen to you." His promise sent a shiver down her spine. The way he spoke felt like a vow, yet it also felt like a threat. She looked up, searching his eyes for sincerity, and found a flicker of something that made her heart race, a strange mix of desire and fear. "Why me?" she asked, unable to suppress her curiosity. "There must be others who can do this job." "True," he replied slowly, "but none would care as much as you do. You're not just fighting for yourself, you're fighting for your family's honor. That kind of motivation is rare." His words resonated with her. She had spent years trying to protect her family's name, navigating her father's mistakes, and carrying the weight of his debts. Perhaps this was her chance to turn the tide, but could she really trust him? As if reading her thoughts, Kaito reached out, lightly brushing his fingers against her arm. You don't have to decide right now, but know this, I'll be watching your back. You're safe with me." His touch sent a jolt of electricity coursing through her, and she pulled back slightly, heart pounding in her chest. The closeness felt intoxicating, and she struggled to maintain her composure. What if I don't want to be involved in this life? His expression darkened momentarily, revealing a glimpse of the danger lurking beneath his composed exterior. "You already are, but I can help you navigate it if you let me." With those words, the stakes grew ever higher. She was teetering on the edge of a precipice, and the choice before her felt monumental. Could she embrace this new identity, align herself with Kaito, and still hold on to her sense of self? Before she could respond, the door swung open, and a man in a tailored suit stepped in, his expression grave. "Kaito, we have a situation." Kaito's demeanor shifted instantly. The warmth that had filled the room evaporated, replaced by an icy determination. "What kind of situation?" "There's been a breach at the docks. Some shipments went missing, and we're suspecting it's an inside job." The urgency in his voice sent a chill down her spine. She couldn't help but feel that this was only the beginning of the chaos that awaited her. Kaito turned back to her, the tension between them morphing into something sharper, more dangerous. "Stay here. I'll handle this." "Wait," she protested, instinctively stepping forward. "I can help. I want to help." His gaze pinned her in place, a mix of respect and concern flickering in his eyes. "This isn't a game. You don't know what you're asking for. I may not know everything, but I can't just stand by while you're in danger. I want to prove I can handle this." Kaito hesitated, weighing her resolve against the risks. He finally nodded, albeit reluctantly. "Fine, you can come, but stay close to me. I won't lose you to this world." Her heart raced at the thought of being by his side, but the weight of the situation was palpable. They stepped out of the office together, the atmosphere thick with tension and unspoken feelings. The stakes had risen dramatically, and she was about to be thrust into the heart of the storm. As they made their way through the building, she could feel the eyes of Kaito's associates on her. Whispers followed them, curiosity mixed with skepticism. She was an outsider, stepping into a world she barely understood, and the uncertainty clawed at her. Yet there was also a thrill coursing through her veins. She was no longer just a pawn in her father's game. She was actively choosing her path for better or worse. They arrived at the bustling docks, the air heavy with salt and danger. Kaito's demeanor shifted entirely, exuding authority as he barked orders to his men. She watched him command respect with a mere glance, a powerful figure, unafraid to confront the challenges that lay ahead. "Stay close," he reminded her, his voice low and serious as he positioned himself strategically. She nodded, adrenaline surging through her as she prepared to face whatever came next. As they moved through the chaos, she couldn't help but steal glances at him. The way he navigated the situation with calm confidence drew her in, and the chemistry between them crackled like electricity in the air. But with every passing moment, the reality of their circumstances loomed larger. Suddenly, a commotion erupted nearby, drawing their attention. A group of men, rough-looking and visibly agitated, were arguing loudly, fists clenched and voices raised. Kaito's expression hardened, and she felt a surge of fear as the situation escalated. "Get ready," he instructed, stepping forward with a fierce determination. "Stay behind me." Before she could respond, chaos erupted. The men lunged at each other, fists flying, and Kaito was immediately in the fray, expertly dodging and countering blows. She watched in awe, heart pounding, as he moved with precision, a warrior in his element. But her instincts kicked in, and she couldn't just stand by while he fought. Fueled by adrenaline, she rushed forward, grabbing a nearby pipe that had fallen to the ground. She swung it at the nearest aggressor, surprising both him and herself. It connected with a dull thud, and the man stumbled back, shock etched on his face. "Kaito!" she shouted, adrenaline coursing through her veins. He glanced over, a mixture of surprise and respect flashing in his eyes. "I can help." "Get back," he barked, but there was a hint of admiration in his voice. She pressed on, swinging the pipe again, this time at another man who was approaching Kaido from behind. The impact sent the man sprawling, and for a brief moment, the chaos around them paused. Kaido took advantage of the distraction, his focus sharpening as he dispatched another attacker with swift efficiency. Together, they fought back, a whirlwind of movement and instinct, each protecting the other amidst the chaos. As the dust settled, she found herself standing beside Kaido, panting and exhilarated. The adrenaline surged through her, a rush of empowerment coursing through her veins. She had stepped into the world of the Yakuza, and in that moment, she felt invincible. But as the adrenaline faded, the gravity of what had just happened hit her. She had crossed a line, and there was no going back now. The realization was both thrilling and terrifying, and she turned to Kaido, their eyes locking in a moment of shared understanding. "What did I just do?" she asked, breathless from the encounter. "You showed me you can handle yourself," he replied, a hint of pride in his voice. "But this is just the beginning. You need to be ready for more." "I will be," she vowed, her voice steady despite the tremors of uncertainty that lingered. "I want to be part of this." Kaido's expression softened, and for the first time, she saw a flicker of warmth behind the icy facade he usually wore. "Then let's find out just how strong you really are." As they walked away from the chaos, side by side, she felt a sense of purpose ignite within her. She was no longer merely a victim of her circumstances. She was becoming a player in her own right. And amidst the danger, the allure of Kaido's world drew her in further, weaving a complex tapestry of romance and suspense that she was eager to unravel. But as their bond deepened, so too did the shadows lurking in the corners of their lives. Each revelation brought them closer, but it also pulled them into a web of danger they could not escape. And in that moment, she knew that her life was forever intertwined with Kaido's, a dangerous dance they would navigate together. With every step they took, the stakes grew higher, and the future remained uncertain. But for the first time, she felt alive, ready to face whatever challenges awaited her in the world of the Yakuza. The journey had only just begun, and she was determined to carve her own path, no matter the cost. As the night deepened, the city pulsed with a rhythm that resonated with both danger and allure. She stood at the massive windows of Kaido's penthouse, the sprawling skyline of Tokyo twinkling like a tapestry of stars, yet her heart felt heavy. It was a place of opulence, filled with artifacts that whispered of power and legacy. But tonight, it felt more like a gilded cage. The weight of the decisions she had to make pressed down on her, and the air crackled with tension. After their impactful encounter, she sensed a shift in their dynamic. Kaido had revealed more of himself, peeling back layers of the man shrouded in mystery. Yet, just as she began to understand him, the shadows of his world loomed larger than ever. The threats he faced were no longer abstract. They were dangerously real. Her heart raced as she recalled the way he had looked at her, the intensity of his gaze that held both warmth and an unyielding steeliness. He was a man of contradictions, and she was irrevocably drawn to him. But as she contemplated their budding relationship, she remembered the chilling conversation they had shared earlier. Kaido's voice had been laced with urgency as he explained the dangers they were now entangled in. "There are those who would use you to get to me," he had said, his expression hardening. "I can't let that happen. You need to understand that your safety is paramount." "Why do you care?" she had challenged, her voice steady despite the tremor in her heart. "I'm just a pawn in your game, right?" Kaido's jaw clenched, and for a moment she saw the flicker of vulnerability that lay beneath his tough exterior. "You're more than that," he replied, his tone softer, almost pleading. "I don't want to lose you to this world. You deserve better." The confession hung in the air, and in that moment, she had felt a swell of emotions. Could she trust him? Was there truly something more between them? Or was it merely the intoxicating draw of danger that blurred her judgment? She was still grappling with the reality of her situation, the debts that had brought her here, and the life she had left behind. But there was no denying the connection that sparked between them, a fire that refused to be extinguished. Suddenly, the door swung open, and Kaido stepped into the room, his presence commanding. He wore a tailored suit that accentuated his physique, yet his brow was furrowed, a storm brewing in his usually composed demeanor. "We have a problem," he announced, his voice low and urgent. "What kind of problem?" she asked, her heart racing. "Rival factions are aware of your presence here," he replied, his eyes narrowing. "They see you as leverage, a way to weaken me. We need to be cautious." The gravity of his words struck her, and she felt a jolt of fear coursing through her veins. "What do you mean?" Kaito stepped closer, his intense gaze locking onto hers. "I won't let them harm you, but you need to understand the stakes. This isn't just about us anymore. It's about survival." Her chest tightened at the thought of being a target, a pawn in a dangerous game she barely understood. "I didn't ask for any of this," she said, frustration bubbling to the surface. "I'm not a damsel in distress." "I know," Kaito replied, his voice softening as he reached out, brushing a stray hair behind her ear. "But you're in danger, and I can't allow that. I won't let my enemies use you against me." His touch ignited a spark, a reminder of the passion that simmered beneath their fraught relationship. But it also underscored the reality that she was caught in a world that was foreign to her, one filled with shadows and secrets. "What do we do?" she asked, her voice steadier now. Kaito hesitated before speaking, his expression conflicted. "I need you to trust me. We'll have to go into hiding for a while, away from the city. It's the only way to keep you safe." The idea sent a chill down her spine. "And what about my life, my job, my family?" "Your safety comes first," he insisted, his tone firm. "I'll find a way to deal with this. Just give me time." She could see the determination in his eyes, the weight of responsibility he carried, but she also felt a flicker of rebellion inside her. "I can't just disappear, Kaito. I have a life to live. I won't be your prisoner." "Then we need to find a balance," he replied, his expression softening. "I'll protect you, but you has to be willing to fight alongside me. This is bigger than both of us." His words resonated deep within her, awakening a fierce sense of empowerment she hadn't realized she possessed. She had already faced so much, and the prospect of stepping into this new world terrified her, but she refused to be a victim. "I'm ready to fight," she declared, her voice unwavering. "But I need to know that you're with me too." Kaido's gaze softened, and for the first time, she saw a hint of admiration flicker in his eyes. "I promise I'll protect you, but I can't do it alone. We face this together or not at all." The tension in the room shifted, and she felt a rush of adrenaline surge through her. They were standing on the precipice of something monumental, a partnership forged in the fires of adversity. "Together?" she echoed, her heart racing at the prospect. Just as they reached an understanding, the atmosphere around them shifted, and an ominous presence invaded the space. Kaido's expression hardened, his instincts kicking in. "Stay behind me," he ordered, his voice commanding. Before she could respond, the sound of crashing glass reverberated through the penthouse. A figure emerged from the shadows, a rival gang member with a predatory glint in his eyes. "Kaido," the man sneered, his voice dripping with malice. "You think you can hide behind her? This is your reckoning." Kaido stepped forward, his demeanor shifting from protective to ferocious. "Get out, Ryu. You have no place here." Ryu laughed, a cold, chilling sound that echoed in the lavish room. I think you'll find that I have every right to be here. Your little pet is a valuable asset, and you've made a grave mistake by taking her in. The tension crackled like electricity, and she felt her heart race as she positioned herself behind Kaido, instinctively trusting him to shield her from harm. "What do you want?" Kaido demanded, his voice a steely edge. "Let's make a deal," Ryu proposed, his eyes narrowing as he sized her up. "I take her off your hands, and you walk away unscathed. You know I have the resources to keep her safe." Kaido's fists clenched, and she felt the heat radiating from his body. "You'll never have her. I won't let you use her as a bargaining chip." Ryu smirked, unfazed by Kaido's defiance. "You think you can protect her forever? The moment she steps out of this penthouse, she'll be mine, and I'll make sure she understands what true power looks like." Fury bubbled within her, and she stepped forward, her voice rising above the tension. "I'm not a pawn. I won't let you control me." Ryu turned his gaze toward her, surprise flickering in his eyes. "Feisty, aren't you? You might just make this interesting." "Stay away from her," Kaido growled, stepping protectively in front of her. "You'll regret crossing me." The air thickened with hostility as the two men faced off, each unwilling to back down. She could feel the weight of their rivalry, a dangerous dance of power that threatened to engulf her. In that moment, she realized the stakes were far greater than she had anticipated, and the shadows that loomed over their lives were closing in. "Enough of this," Ryu spat, his patience wearing thin. "You've made your choice, Kaito, but remember, I always get what I want." With a swift movement, he lunged toward Kaito, and the two men collided in a flurry of fists and ferocity. She gasped, instinctively reaching out to intervene, but Kaito's fierce presence commanded the situation. The room erupted in chaos as they fought, and she felt a surge of helplessness wash over her. "Stay back!" Kaito shouted, his voice strained as he wrestled with Ryu. But she couldn't just stand by and watch. She had come too far and fought too hard to be a mere spectator. Mustering her courage, she grabbed a nearby vase and hurled it at Ryu, hoping to distract him. The vase shattered against the wall, and Ryu momentarily faltered, giving Kaito the opening he needed. Seizing the opportunity, Kaito tackled Ryu to the ground, his movements fluid and powerful. "You'll regret this," he growled, pinning Ryu beneath him. Ryu laughed, even as Kaito restrained him. "You think this ends here? You've made enemies, Kaito. I'll be back." With that, Ryu's words hung in the air like a dark omen, and Kaito's grip tightened. "Get out. You'll never touch her again." As Ryu scrambled to his feet, he shot her one last glance, a promise of the chaos to come. "You're playing a dangerous game, little girl. Remember that." With a final smirk, Ryu slipped out into the night, leaving an unsettling silence in his wake. She turned to Kaito, who was breathing heavily, his expression a mix of anger and concern. "Are you all right?" she asked, her voice trembling. Kaito looked at her, the intensity of the moment weighing on them. "You shouldn't have intervened. I can protect you." "I'm not just going to stand by while you fight my battles," she replied, her voice firm. "I'm a part of this now, whether I like it or not." His gaze softened, and he stepped closer, his presence enveloping her like a shield. "It's dangerous, and I can't bear the thought of losing you." "But you're not losing me," she insisted, her heart racing. "I'm here, and I'm not going anywhere." In that moment, they both understood the truth. They were bound together by fate, caught in a web of danger that neither could escape. The stakes had never been higher, and the shadows of the Yakuza world loomed ever closer. But together, they would face whatever came their way. As the adrenaline began to ebb, Kaido reached out, brushing his fingers against her cheek, a gesture both tender and fierce. "Promise me you'll stay close." "I promise," she replied, feeling a surge of resolve. "But you need to trust me too. We're in this together." He searched her eyes, and in that gaze she saw a flicker of hope amidst the chaos. They were warriors in their own right, ready to confront whatever lay ahead. With hearts intertwined and spirits unyielding, they would carve their own path through the shadows, forging a bond that would withstand the trials to come. As she stood there, feeling the weight of the world on their shoulders, she knew one thing for certain: her life was forever changed, and she was prepared to navigate the treacherous waters of loyalty, love, and the unyielding power of the Yakuza. Together, they would rise, defying the darkness that sought to consume them. The journey was just beginning, and she was ready to embrace the chaos and the beauty that lay ahead, hand in hand with Kaido, the enigmatic Yakuza boss who had captured her heart.